Welcome back to Echo Report, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In April 2025, the global economy was rocked when Beijing abruptly ordered all Chinese airlines to halt new aircraft purchases from Boeing. The news sent shockwaves through financial markets, signaling a new phase of economic warfare between the U.S. and China. Dozens of newly built jets were instantly grounded, and the world watched as a symbol of U.S. China cooperation became the front line of a dangerous conflict. Beijing's ban extended beyond finished planes, blocking U.S. aircraft components and threatening the maintenance of hundreds of Boeing jets already in China. This was a calculated move, showing China's willingness to disrupt its own aviation sector to strike at the heart of American industry. Boeing, a cornerstone of the U.S. economy and defense, suddenly found its most lucrative market closed. The halt shattered the belief that economic ties guaranteed peace, revealing America's vulnerability to geopolitical tensions. Beijing made it clear, no negotiations until the U.S. rolled back new tariffs. The message was unmistakable. China was now ready to launch its own countermeasures, targeting America's most sensitive industries. The Boeing ban marked the opening shot in a new era of great power competition, fought with supply chains and industrial policy. The world had entered uncharted territory. The Boeing crisis didn't emerge overnight, it was the result of years of eroding trust. For decades, Boeing and China enjoyed a mutually beneficial partnership, with China's airlines fueling Boeing's growth. But the 2018 trade war and the 737 MAX crisis shattered that trust. Chinese orders for Boeing jets plummeted, and Beijing began to see reliance on Boeing as a strategic risk. The long delay in recertifying the 737 MAX was a clear political signal. By 2025, with the return of the Trump administration and threats of deeper tariffs, Beijing saw a decisive break as necessary. The golden era of U.S. China aviation cooperation was over. Boeing's dominance in China had evaporated, replaced by suspicion and strategic rivalry. The stage was set for a dramatic escalation. The immediate trigger was a massive escalation in the trade war. In early 2025, the U.S. imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, aiming to cripple China's economy. China retaliated with a 125% tariff on American imports, including aircraft, making Boeing jets unaffordable for Chinese airlines. The tariffs weaponized Boeing's price tag, forcing Chinese carriers to halt all future purchases. The government's official order to suspend deliveries added political finality to the economic blockade. This was a point of no return. Both sides had moved beyond negotiation. The sheer scale of the tariffs shut down vast swaths of trade, transforming a dispute into a full-blown economic confrontation. By targeting Boeing, China struck at a symbol of American power, ensuring the conflict would be felt by workers across the U.S. The dream of a peaceful, integrated global economy was one of the first casualties. The trade war had become an all-out economic conflict. The fallout for Boeing and the U.S. economy was immediate and severe. Boeing's shares plunged, billions in market value vanished, and 55 finished jets for Chinese customers sat idle. The halt choked off vital cash flow, threatening 1.6 million American jobs tied to Boeing's supply chain. The shock rippled through the stock market, erasing $1.5 trillion in a single day. Other industries felt the pain. Mazda paused U.S. operations, Walmart warned of shortages, and the defense sector braced for supply chain chaos. The World Trade Organization warned that U.S.-China trade could collapse by 81% if the conflict continued. Boeing faced over $1.2 billion in lost revenue for 2025 alone, with long-term market share at risk. The company scrambled to find new buyers in a saturated market, likely at steep discounts. The crisis exposed how quickly economic interdependence can turn into devastation. America's largest exporter was grounded and the world took notice. China's move was part of a broader strategy to achieve technological supremacy. By banning Boeing, Beijing handed its own aerospace giant Comac a captive market. Chinese airlines now had little choice but to buy Comac's C919, accelerating its rise as a global competitor. State-driven support gave Comac an edge Boeing couldn't match. The goal dominate not just China but export jets worldwide, challenging U.S. industry. Simultaneously, China restricted exports of 7 critical rare earth minerals, vital for U.S. defense, electronics, and green tech. The U.S., with little domestic processing capacity, was suddenly exposed. the rare earths move was a checkmate, threatening to paralyze key American sectors. The Pentagon faced the prospect of supply chains controlled by its main rival. China's twin blows, boosting COMAC and restricting minerals, revealed a sophisticated strategy to reshape the global economic order. The U.S. was forced to confront its vulnerabilities. The Boeing crisis marked the end of the post-Cold War era of optimistic globalization. Economic interdependence, once seen as a guarantee of peace, had become a weapon. Supply chains and markets were now battlegrounds in a new industrial Cold War. The crisis exposed the risks of offshoring critical industries and made supply chain resilience a national security imperative. The U.S. began a push to reshore key sectors like semiconductors and rare earths, requiring a fundamental shift in industrial policy. The fallout extended globally. Europe faced new risks, and nations in the global south were pressured to pick sides. The world now faced a future of greater friction, protectionism, and uncertainty. The Boeing crisis signaled a fundamental change. Economic logic no longer trumped political rivalry. For American industry, it was a wake-up call to innovate and diversify. For global trade, it meant a new era of caution and competition. Navigating this world would require balancing economic interests with national security like never before.